we're going to be putting together a dream scene, perhaps something like this, or this example, where we have a background, the background shared for these two images, a foreground element which has been photoshopped in, a main character, some shadows, some props or objects, and play around with the colours of them as well. So firstly we'll go to open Photoshop, and then we'll go and find some images that we're going to use. So in this instance I'm working primarily with pictures that I've taken. So here we have an outdoor scene, or the setting for my picture. Here's further assets for the setting. I actually use the foreground part in these tables. Here's my character, and here is one of the props or other objects that exist in the scene. So we want good source images. So when I did a search on Google for this one, I made sure that it was set to large, and the other pictures are ones that I've taken myself. So once you are happy with what you've got, you want to right click, open with Photoshop, or from within Photoshop open it yourself. Now instead of just working directly on this, we're going to create a new file straight away. So we go File, New. We're going to make it an international paper A4 page. It's going to be landscape. So we need to make it 297 here and 210 here. Roughly 300 mil wide and 210 high, and we'll keep the resolution at 300 dpi for now. The colour mode can be RGB, and we'll select OK. So I've created a new document, so I can see it all at once. I'll just go Control+ on my keyboard and it brings it all in. Now I'm going to go across here and select all of this image. Control A, so the selection area is visible. Control C to copy. Go to my new file, Control V, and as I paste it in, you can see that it appears as a new layer. The resolution of this image is a bit smaller in the background, but it's enough that we can work with, and I want to resize and reposition it. So Control T to bring up the transform tool, and I'm holding down Shift to scale it in proportion so it doesn't distort, and Alt to scale from the middle, and I'm scaling that up till it's as wide as that area. Alright, and I'm going to apply that change and hit enter. And I'm going to save it. File, save as, and this is called Dream Scene. Underscore, put your name in there, and save it as a PSD file because we want to retain all the layers and attributes of that file at this point. Close that one because I don't need it anymore, and I want to open up the other part of my background. You might just have one part of your background, but I wanted to combine two parts, so I'm going to open that with Photoshop again. Control A, Control C, close it and paste this in here. It's once again open as a new layer. I'm in the habit of putting in the name of objects for each layer so I can distinguish them. I'll call this one Room. Just double click on that and then type the name in. Once again, to resize, Control T. Hang on, I have to select that layer first. Control T. Holding down Shift for proportion and Alt to scale from the center. Once it's wider than that, I can shift it down, holding down Shift and the cursor key into place. When I'm happy with where it is, I'm going to hit enter. If you want to position something over another thing, it's often a good idea to change the opacity of that layer. So I could do that here, just drop it back to 50%, and I can move things around till I'm comfortable with how it's arranged, so I might apply that and drag that back up. Now there's a couple of things about this picture which I don't want in there, the whole background section, this row of chairs, but I do want the floor and this. So I'm going to do some masking straight up to create my scene. So to create a mask on a layer, make sure it's selected, and there's an icon down the bottom here which is a rectangle with a circle, and I create mask. Now when I'm editing the mask, it's actually highlighted. If I'm editing the picture itself, it's highlighted. So I make sure that the mask is selected, and I'm always drawing with white or black. And I'm going to use a brush tool, and I make sure that it's soft edge. And I select up here and nice and large. I need it quite a bit larger than that. Too large. Alright, and it needs to be switched to black. As I draw with black, it's actually taking out part of that picture. And you can see the soft edge blends it in. I have a small problem, and that is that my chairs are disappearing at the same time. But you can see the mask here is black, the area remaining is white with a soft edge in between. I'm just going to undo that, Control-Alt-Z a couple of times. So what I want to do first is paint around the bits that I want to retain. So I'm going to make the brush a fair bit smaller. Now I would expect that you would do this with a lot more precision than I am. I'm using a soft edge brush because it helps the background and the foreground blend into each other. This is kind of my transition point here. I'm just going to go in Control plus to zoom in. As you can see, it's probably too soft an edge. If I want to change that, I can just use the square bracket on the keyboard to make it smaller. So I can undo if I don't like what I've done, or I can switch with X between black and white. So as I hit X, it switches, and the white, just like on the mask thumbnail there, shows the area that's visible. So I actually draw bits back in. So black to erase, and white to draw things back in to neaten it up. Like I said, I'm not going to be super particular. Oops. Remember what I'm actually drawing. Just trying to get a definite edge to the area that I'm removing. I won't worry about areas like this just now, just for a demonstration. Control 0 to see the whole area. Now I'm going to remove this whole section in one shot. So I'm going to grab the lasso tool, and I'm drawing right in the middle of where that soft brush was, so I'm not creating an extra edge. You can do this in smaller parts, so you do it bit by bit. See, I took about a bit of the table out. Select that whole area. Notice when I hit delete, it actually draws things back in. So what I need to do is switch to white, and I'm deleting using white. And on my mask here, a whole area is now disappeared, and my blend is much more naturalistic. So I've got chairs nearly sitting on an oval. What I want to do now is deselect, Control D, switch back to black, grab my brush. Now I'm going to use that big soft edge and blend across there. Just being careful with those chair legs because I don't want them to make them disappear too much. So without being super particular, I can do that. Switch back, make my brush smaller, and draw in details that I want sharp, like that leg and this one. That's pretty good for now. I'm going to save it, File, Save. And there's my setting. Alright, next step is to actually put in an object or a character. So I'm going to grab my character, open with Photoshop, and do the same thing. I want to paste in a section of this, so I can either select it with the marquee tool and go Control C, or if I want to remove more of the background, use the lasso tool, just working around the outside of my character. Control C, go here and paste. Control V. Just going to zoom in a bit. So as you can see, my character's sort of sitting in place. My primary concern right now is to get rid of the background, so I'm going to turn visibility of the background off for my scene, and I'm going to mask this layer as well. So hit mask, and then I'm going to use my brush tool and make sure it's black, work my way around. Notice that this bit is out of focus and it's got a soft edge, so it suits that I am able to use a larger, softer brush. Making the brush smaller now because it's getting sharper on this part of my character. So I would work all the way around, switching to a hard brush, and then I might use this or the lasso tool to then go and clean up all these bigger sections. If I use a hard brush all the time, I end up with a very sharp edge and it looks like it's been cut out with scissors, and it doesn't blend in with the background as well. You get the same kind of sharp edge if you use other masking tools. So I recommend masking this way because you're able to control the size of your brush and the way it transitions into the background. Now this will take a little while, so I've actually got one I prepared earlier, and I'd like to demonstrate how to get something you've masked in another Photoshop file across into your scene. So I'm going to detach this window like so, and notice that this layer is still visible for this file. I'm going to, in the background, I need to go back to my dream scene. I'll turn that off and put the background in so you can see it. That's my original. So I'll make sure this one's selected and I drag it across, and it allows you to drop that whole layer with the mask and all into the background. Then I can dock this back up here, go to my dream scene, Control 0 to see the whole thing, and I'm just using this selection tool, and if I've got another tool up, just holding down Control to position my character. So that looks pretty good. Actually, I could put him up on the table. Yep, I might do that. Control T to bring up the bounding box, and I can resize my character. Alright, so I've got him there. Hit Enter. I'm going to grab another object that I've masked previously using the same technique, applying a layer mask, and I'm going to detach this, drag that layer onto my file, and this time I'm going to grab my object, holding Control to move it around and Control T to reposition it. I want to rotate it so it looks like it's kind of crashed into the ground. I'm going to might look better flipped. Flip horizontal, that looks better. There's the bell. Position it like this. Hit enter. I'm going to duplicate that layer because I might want multiples of the car. I'm going to put one up in the sky over here, and another one here, but smaller. Right click, flip horizontal. And I'm going back to this layer because I want to edit the mask. So instead of editing the picture, I select the mask and I'm going to erase a bit of it so it looks like it's embedded in the ground. Okay, that's enough to set the scene. Next, we're going to edit the colours and then create some shadows.